I was 11 years old when I heard my sister say those words, and even after so long, I still feel the ice in my stomach, as if I were at that table again, watching everything fall apart. It was a Sunday lunch at my paternal grandparents' house. The table was full, Grandpa Antonio at the head, Grandma Helena serving the dishes, my father next to my sister Bianca, and my mother. My mother was at the other end, quiet, eating slowly. I sat next to her. He always sat. Bianca had just returned from a trip with her friends, paid for by her father, of course, and was showing the photos on her cell phone. Everyone laughed, commented, asked to see it again, until my grandmother Helena looked at my mother and said, with that sweet and poisonous tone that she mastered so well, "Clarice, aren't you going to serve dessert? You brought those sweets from your little shop, right?" My mother had a small bakery, but it was a success in the neighborhood. She woke up at 5 in the morning every day to make cakes, breads, pies. He paid the house bills. It supported us. But my grandmother always said it like this, little shop, as if it were child's play. My mother got up without saying anything and went to the kitchen. I saw the way she pursed her lips. I saw the weight on her shoulders. Then Bianca said, very loudly, looking at her cell phone as if it were nothing, "Don't worry, Grandma. There's no need to be embarrassed. Soon, Clarice will no longer be part of our family." The entire table stopped, and then they laughed. My father gave a short laugh, a little uncomfortable, but he laughed. My grandfather sniffed and went back to eating. My grandmother smiled and said, "Oh, Bianca, you're terrible." But no one denied it. Nobody said, "How absurd, Bianca," or "Apologize now." Nobody. I looked at the kitchen door. My mother was standing there, holding the candy dish, her eyes fixed on the floor. She didn't cry. He didn't scream. She just took a deep breath, placed the sweets on the table, and returned to her seat, in silence. And it was in that silence that I understood. I saw my mother's loneliness weighing like a stone on her chest. I saw that she was being expelled, little by little, and no one was going to hold her hand, except me. But I was 11, and I still didn't know what was coming. And my mother's name was Clarice. She was 34 at the time, pretty, with brown hair that she tied into a bun every morning, and a firm way of looking people in the eye when she spoke. She wasn't one to complain. I wasn't one to cry in front of others. She could handle it. It always held up. He met my father, Ricardo, when he was 18. He was older, charming, the son of a family with money. His parents, my grandparents, had a large construction materials store in the city. My father worked there, but he wasn't exactly dedicated. He was more the type who showed up to sign papers and go out to lunch with friends. My mother was different. Daughter of a seamstress and a bricklayer, she worked at a neighborhood bakery from the age of 15. When she married my father, everyone said she was lucky, that he had moved up in life. But the truth is that she was the one who built everything. When I was born, my mother had already opened the bakery. It started small, in a rented place, making cakes to order. My father helped sometimes, but it was my mother who was there every day, from 7 in the morning to 7 at night, serving customers, keeping accounts, cleaning the oven. Bianca was born 5 years before me, and from the beginning, she was treated like a princess. My father spoiled her, my grandmother adored her, my grandfather gave her hidden money. She always had a decorated room, branded clothes, huge birthday parties. I was the youngest, the quiet one, the one who stayed in the kitchen with her mother while Bianca went out with her father. Not that I minded. I loved spending time with my mother. I loved watching her decorate cakes, listening to the stories she told while mixing dough, smelling the smell of cinnamon and vanilla in the house. But as I got older, I started to notice things. I noticed that my father arrived late, that he never asked how my mother's day had been, that he sighed when she talked about the bakery, as if it were a burden. I noticed that my grandmother Helena always made comments. Always. "Clarice, aren't you going to dye that hair? Clarice, have you gained weight? Clarice, Bianca needs a new dress for graduation. You can pay for it, right? After all, you have the shop." And my mother paid. I always paid. Bianca never said thank you. That Sunday, after lunch, I sat on the living room sofa while the adults talked on the balcony. Bianca was in the room playing on her cell phone. My mother had left earlier, alone, saying she needed to open the bakery the next day. My father stayed. I pretended I was watching TV, but I was actually paying attention to their conversation outside. "She's been really sensitive lately." My father's voice. I lie down, almost tired. "Sensitive? Ricardo, the woman can't handle a joke." My grandmother Helena, irritated. "Bianca just made a joke. It was heavy, Mom. Hard? Do you think Clarice deserves respect after all?" Silence. My heart beat faster. "After everything, Helena?" My grandfather Antonio joined the conversation, his voice deep. "The woman works like a convict. She supports the house. She raises the girls. And he keeps throwing it in our faces." My grandmother again, acidic. I work so much." I wake up early. Nobody told her to open that store. Nobody asked. She opened it because she had to, Mom. My father looked uncomfortable. We needed it. Did she have to? Or did you let her carry everything on her back because it was easier? My grandfather, Antonio, had this ability to get straight to the point. Silence again. Then my father said quietly, I can't take it anymore, Dad. My blood ran cold. I can't take this life anymore. I can't take her. I heard my grandmother sigh, relieved, as if someone had finally told her what she wanted to hear. Then end it soon, Ricardo. Her voice was firm. It's over and done. You're still young. You can start over. What about the girls? Bianca already understands, and the little, child adapts. Child adapts. I was 11 years old, and I was listening to my father say that he couldn't stand my mother anymore. I was listening to my grandmother plan the end of her marriage like someone planning a lunch. I just need some time. My father sighed. Let me organize things. Organize what? My grandmother asked suspiciously. Silence. The bakery, my grandfather Antonio said slowly. You want the bakery. Nobody denied it. And that's when I understood. It wasn't just about the wedding. It was about money, about the business my mother had built with her own hands, about taking from her everything she had. And that night when we got home, my mom was in the kitchen preparing things for the next day. Her apron was dirty with flour. Her hair was tied up in a mess. Her eyes were tired. Mother? I called softly. She turned and smiled, but it was a sad smile. Hi, my love. Have you taken a shower yet? I shook my head. I wanted to ask. I wanted to say, Mom, I heard what they said. I heard they're going to kick you out, but I was a child, and children don't know how to talk about these things, so I just hugged her. I hugged her tightly, with my face buried in the apron that smelled of vanilla and tiredness. I love you, Mom. She kissed my hair. I love you too, daughter, more than anything. And at that moment I swore to myself I wouldn't let anyone take my mother away from me, but I still didn't know how. Balaya. Over the next few days, I started paying attention. I began to see what had previously gone unnoticed. My father arrived later and later. Sometimes it didn't even arrive. I said I had a meeting, that I had an appointment, that I needed to sort out things at my grandparents' store. But I heard him on the phone. I heard low laughter. I heard him say, No, she doesn't suspect anything. Bianca was weird too, further away, more arrogant. She barely looked at my mother. When we sat down to dinner, she would be on her cell phone, answering in monosyllables, sighing loudly every time my mother tried to start a conversation. And my mother was withering away. She smiled less. He spoke less. At night, I would wake up and see the light in her room on. She sat on the bed, staring into space. One night, I heard her crying in the bathroom, crying low, muffled, as if he was ashamed to even cry. It was the first time I felt hate. Hatred of my father, Bianca's hate, hatred of my grandparents. How could they do this to her? How could they look at this woman who gave her all and still think she didn't deserve respect? The 2 weeks after that lunch, I was in my room doing homework when I heard an argument downstairs. I went down slowly, hid in the corridor. My father and mother were in the room. You can't be serious, Ricardo. My mother's voice was shaking. I'm serious. Yes, I want a divorce. My heart stopped. Divorce? But why? What did I do? You didn't do anything, Clarice. I don't want this anymore. I don't want you anymore. I saw my mother stagger. Hold on the table. Take a deep breath. What about the girl? The girls stay with me. What do you mean they stay with you? Her voice rose. They are my daughters, Ricardo. And mine too. And I can give them a better life. Conditions? I'm the one who maintains this house. What do you support yourself with, Clarice? With that bakery? That's nothing. It doesn't give anyone a future. Silence. And then my father dropped the bomb. I've already spoken to my lawyer. I have proof that you are an absentee mother, that you work too much, that you don't take proper care of the girls. I'm going to ask for custody, and I'm going to ask for half of the bakery. My mother stayed in silence. I felt tears run down my face, and it was at that moment that I saw it. On the small table next to the sofa, under a magazine, there was an envelope, an open envelope, with papers inside, papers that my father had forgotten there, and I knew, at that moment, that I had to take it, because if my father was plotting against my mother, I needed to find out how. I needed to save her. I waited for my father to leave the room. I waited for my mother to come up the stairs, dragging her feet, defeated. I waited for the silence to weigh on the house like a wet blanket. Then I went down the stairs again, slowly, stepping on my toes. The envelope was still there, under the magazine, as if it were trash, as if it didn't matter. But it mattered. I took it with shaking hands. It was a simple brown envelope, with the name of a law firm printed in the corner. I opened it slowly. Inside there were 5 or 6 stapled papers, full of difficult words, legal terms that I barely understood. But some things I understood. Contested divorce action. Request for unilateral custody. Division of assets. 50% of the commercial establishment called Confeitaria Doce Lar. My mother had given it that name, Sweet Home, because it was her dream. a house made of affection and sugar, and my father wanted half. I continued reading, scanning quickly, afraid that someone would come down and catch me there. I had a list of evidence that my father's lawyer had gathered. Constant absence from home due to excessive working hours, emotional neglect of daughters, prioritization of commercial interests to the detriment of family. Every line was a lie, each sentence a stab. My mother was not absent. She worked to support us. She woke up at 5 a.m, made us coffee, took us to school, picked us up when she could, prepared dinner, helped us with our homework. All. She did everything. And now they were going to use that against her. They were going to say she was a bad mother because she worked too much. I felt anger rising in my throat, anger and fear, because if my father managed this, if he took us, I wasn't going to let it. I took my cell phone out of my pocket. I had an old simple cell phone that my mother gave me for emergencies, and photographed each page. The hands were shaking so much that some of the photos were a little blurry, but it was possible to read them. I put the envelope back, exactly as it was, and I ran up to my room. And that night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, going over everything in my head. My father had been planning this for how long? Weeks? Months? And Bianca. Bianca knew. I remembered her phrase at lunch. Soon, Clarice will no longer be part of our family. Of course she knew. My father should have told her. I should have prepared her. And Bianca, who was always the sweetheart, the little princess, accepted it happily. Because for her, my mother was just the woman who paid the bills. She wasn't a real mother. Real mother, for Bianca, was Grandma Helena. He gave money, praised, patted his head. But my mother was just Clarice, the one who worked too much, the one who didn't have time, the one who wasn't part of the family. I turned sideways in bed, clutching the pillow. I needed to tell her. I needed to show the photos. But what if she got worse? What if it collapsed for good? She was already so fragile, so tired. I decided to wait for the right moment. But I would watch. I would pay attention to everything. The next morning I went downstairs for breakfast and my mother was in the kitchen, as usual. But her face was different, swollen, red eyes. She had been crying all night. "Good morning, my love." Her voice was low, hoarse. "Good morning, Mom." I sat at the table. She placed a plate with bread, butter, jam. Her hands were shaking. "Mom, are you okay?" She stopped. He looked at me, and for a second, I saw everything there. The pain, the tiredness, the fear. "I'm fine, daughter, just tired." Lie. But I didn't insist. Bianca appeared soon after, already with the phone in her ear, took an apple and left without saying anything. My father didn't even show up. My mother and I drank coffee in silence, and it was in that silence that I realized our house was dying. Over the next few days, I began to observe everything like a detective. I was 11 years old, but I was determined. I wrote down the times my father left. I wrote down when he came back. I paid attention to his calls. One afternoon, he was in the backyard talking on the phone. I thought I wasn't around, but I was, hidden behind the laundry room door. "No, love, she doesn't suspect anything." His voice was low, almost affectionate. "Relax. In 2 months at most, everything will be resolved. Love." He called someone love, and it wasn't my mother. My stomach turned. I knew what that meant. I was 11 years old, but I wasn't stupid. My father had another. "I know it's hard to wait," Ian continued, "but it needs to be like this. I need to guarantee the custody of the girls and the baking part. After that, we can really be together." Silence. "Bianca is already on my side. The little one? Well, she'll understand with time. The little one." He was talking about me as if I were a detail, a problem to be solved. I felt the tears burn, but I held them back. I wasn't going to cry. Not now. I continued listening. "My mother is already preparing everything. She's going to testify in our favor. She's going to say that Clarice is absent, that she doesn't take proper care of the girls, and the lawyer said that with her testimony we'll win easily." My grandmother. My own grandmother would lie in court. I was going to destroy my mother just to help my father be with another woman. "I love you," my father said softly. "We'll be together soon. I promise." I mentally switched off. I didn't want to hear any more. I went back to my room, locked the door, and cried. I cried with anger. I cried with hate. I cried because my family was rotten inside and I didn't know how to fix it. But I knew one thing. My mother couldn't lose. She didn't deserve to lose. And I was going to do whatever it took to stop that. I remembered when I was younger, much smaller, about 6, 7 years. My mother didn't have the bakery yet. She worked in a bakery, but dreamed of having her own business. I remember one night, I woke up thirsty and went down to the kitchen. She was sitting at the table with a notebook in front of her doing math. "Mom, why aren't you sleeping?" She looked up, surprised, smiled. "Hi, my love. Come here." I sat on her lap. She smelled like soap and hand cream. "I'm doing some math here. Do you know what this is?" I shook my head. "It's my dream." She pointed to the notebook. "One day, I'm going to have a bakery. Small, but mine. And do you know what I'm going to name it?" "Which?" "Sweet Home. Because everyone deserves a sweet home, right?" I smiled. "I like that name." One day you will work with me. You will make beautiful cakes, just like me. I don't know how to bake a cake, Mom. I'll teach you. She kissed my forehead. I'll teach you everything. And she taught. He taught that work is dignified, what a dream is achieved at dawn, what a love it is to wake up early to make your daughter's coffee. And now my father wanted to take all of that away from her. No, it wasn't going to happen. Satoba. A week later, I was in the living room doing homework when my grandmother Helena appeared. Without warning, like always. She came in with that lady of the house look, kissed my forehead absently, and went straight to look for my father. Where's your father? I don't know. I think it came out. She snorted. He took out his cell phone and called. I pretended to be concentrating on my notebook, but I was paying attention. Ricardo, where are you? I need to talk to you. It's about that. Pause. No, it can't be over the phone. Come here. That one. Half an hour later, my father arrived. He and my grandmother went to the office, a small room at the back of the house, and closed the door. I knew I shouldn't. I knew it was wrong, but I went there. I put my ear to the door. The lawyer said he needs more proof, my grandmother was saying. Needs something concrete, something that shows she doesn't really care for the girls. Like what? Like, I don't know. A report from the school saying the girl is in a bad way. A witness saying she stays home alone. Something. Bianca can testify, my father suggested. You can, but you need more. You need to push the envelope, Ricardo. It leaves the house messy. There's a lack of food, I don't know. It creates a situation. My blood ran cold. They were planning to set my mother up. What about the bakery? My father asked. You get the bakery in the division, 50%. The lawyer already explained. As you are married in partial community of assets, everything acquired during the marriage is divided, and the bakery was opened during. But she built everything. So what? She was married to you. You have the right. Silence. And then? My father asked, more quietly. After I get everything, can I sell my share? Of course. Sell it to whoever you want. Or force them to buy it from you. Either way, you win. I heard my father sigh. Okay, I'll do what you say. Great. What about Jessica? Jessica, the other. Now I knew the name. What's wrong? Is she rushing? Okay, but I said it needs time. Then tell her to be patient. These things can't be resolved overnight. I know, Mom. I backed away from the door before they opened it. I ran up to my room, my heart racing. Jessica. My father had a lover named Jessica, and my grandmother knew. Supported. I was helping him destroy my mother to be with this woman. I picked up the cell phone. I opened the notepad, and I started writing everything down. Everything I had heard. Everything I had seen. Dates. Schedules. Names. I was 11 years old, but I was going to be my mother's lawyer. That night, my mother arrived late from the bakery. She was exhausted, with flour stains on her apron, her eyes sunken. He sat on the edge of my bed, ran his hand through my hair. Did you sleep well yesterday? Sleep. Lie. She smiled tiredly. I'm sorry I'm arriving late. There was a big wedding. I needed to make 3 cakes. It's okay, Mom. She looked at me, really looked, and I saw that she knew something was wrong. Mothers always know. You're acting strange these days. Did something happen? I almost did. I almost said, Mom, Dad wants to destroy you. He has another one. He wants the candy store. He wants to take me away from you. But I was afraid. Fear of her falling apart. Fear of losing her before being able to help. So I lied again. No, Mom. I'm just tired from school. She kissed my forehead. It will get better. Everything will get better. I wanted to believe. And 2 days later, I was walking home from school. My mother couldn't pick me up when I saw a scene that changed everything. I was passing in front of a small cafe, close to the square, and there, sitting at a small table on the sidewalk, was my father, with a woman. She was beautiful, blonde hair, fancy clothes, laughing out loud at something he said. My father held her hand across the table. Jessica. I knew it was her. I stopped on the other side of the street, hidden behind a lamppost. I picked up the cell phone. I took a photo. 2, 3. My father leaned over and kissed her, there, in public, in the middle of the afternoon, as if it didn't matter, as if my mother didn't exist. I took more photos, and it was at that moment that I knew. I had proof. Now I just needed to decide what to do with it. I saved the photos as if they were gold, as if they were the weapon that would save my mother. But I was 11, and I still didn't know how to use a weapon like that. I spent the next few days caught between fear and anger. Fear of telling and making everything worse. Anger at seeing my father coming into the house every day, pretending he was a decent man, kissing my mother's forehead as if he wasn't sticking a knife in her back. He was different, more impatient, colder. One night my mother asked if he wanted dinner. He didn't even look at her. I'm not hungry, but I made that chicken you like. I said I'm not hungry, Clarice. His voice came out hard, cutting. My mother stood there, holding the pan, her eyes teary. Bianca was at the table playing on her cell phone. Didn't even care. I gripped the fork so hard my hand hurt. My father went up to his room. My mother stood there still, as if she had been punched. Mom, I called softly. She took a deep breath, blinked quickly to hold back the tears, and smiled. That broken smile she was using more and more. It's okay, daughter. He's just tired of cheating, tired of lying, tired of pretending. But my mother didn't know. Not yet. Hasta Mai the following week, my grandmother Helena appeared again. This time, I brought my grandfather Antonio along. It was Saturday morning. My mother was at the bakery, as always. I was at home, watching TV. They entered without knocking. My father came down, already waiting. Good morning, daughter. My grandfather patted me on the head absently. My grandmother didn't even look at me. They went straight to the kitchen. They closed the door. I already knew what to do. I was already trained. I approached slowly. I put my ear to the door. She still doesn't suspect anything? My grandmother asked. I don't think so. My father looked tired. She's so focused on the bakery that she doesn't even notice what's going on around her. Good. The less she knows, the better. Helena, my grandfather Antonio intervened, his voice deep. Are you sure about this? Clarice is a good woman. She works like a convict. So what, Antonio? My grandmother retorted, irritated. She works because she wants to. Nobody forced her. And now Ricardo has the right to be happy. Happy with Jessica, my grandfather said bluntly. Silence. Yes, my grandmother confirmed firmly. Happy with Jessica. She's young, pretty, educated, and comes from a good family. She's not just someone who opened a little shop and thinks she's a businesswoman. I felt hatred rising in my throat. Mom, don't talk like that, my father said, but without much conviction. I'll say whatever I want, Ricardo. You're my son, and I'm not going to leave you trapped in an unhappy life just because Clarice is poor. What about the girls? My grandfather insisted. The girls stay with their father, as it should be. The little one loves her mother, Helena. Are you going to separate them? The little one will understand. Children adapt. Child adapts. That phrase again. As if I were an animal, an object, something you move from one place to another and that's it. What about the bakery? My grandfather asked. Ricardo will take his share, 50%. It's fair. Fair? My grandfather let out a bitter laugh. It would be fair if he worked with her. But he never did anything. He never helped. He's her husband, Antonium. That's enough contribution. Heavy silence. Then my grandfather said slowly, with contained anger, You are creating an injustice, Helena, and one day it will come back to you. Nothing will come back. My grandmother was ice, because we have a lawyer, we have evidence, and we have the law on our side. I heard footsteps. I ran away, went back to the couch, pretended I was watching TV. They left the kitchen. My grandfather passed me, looked at me sadly, and left. My grandmother followed shortly behind, haughty, as always. My father stayed. I looked at him. He looked at me, and for a second, I saw something there. Shame? Repentance? But he looked away and went up the stairs. And that afternoon, my mother arrived home carrying shopping bags. She'd gone to the market after work. She walked through the kitchen door, tired, sweaty, her shoulders slumped. Hey, my love, she smiled at me. Help me put it away? Of course, Mom. I started taking things out of the bags. Rice, beans, pasta, fruits, vegetables, everything we needed. My mother always did the shopping. I always paid. He always made sure nothing was missing. Where's your father? She asked casually. Upstairs. She nodded, continued putting things away. Then the kitchen door opened. My father came in, looked at the bags, and frowned. Did you buy all of this? I bought it. We needed it. And how much did you spend? My mother stopped. She looked at him confused. I don't know. About 300, I think. 300 raise, Clarice? In food? Ricardo, we need to eat. We need to save money, too. He crossed his arms. You keep spending money for nothing. My mother let out a disbelieving laugh. For nothing? I'm buying food, Ricardo. Food for our family. Our family, he repeated with a strange tone. It's funny you say that, because lately it seems like all you think about is your bakery, your little shop. You forget that you have a family here. My mother turned pale. How can you say that? I say it because it's true. You work all day, come home tired, barely look at the girls. I work to support this house. Her voice rose. I work to pay the bills, to put food on the table, to provide clothes and school for our daughters. And you tell me that I don't look at them? You don't look, Clarice. You're always in a rush, always busy, always tired. That's not life. Isn't it life? My mother was shaking. And what do you do, Ricardo? What do you do to help? Silence. I asked. What do you do? I work too. It works? She gave a bitter laugh. You stop by your parents' store twice a week, sign some papers, and go out to lunch with your friends. Is that work? My father gritted his teeth. Be careful what you say, Clarice. Why? Am I telling lies? He took a step forward. His face was red. His hands were clenched. My mother didn't back down. I stood still, holding a can of corn, my heart beating out of control. You're thinking of yourself, right? He said, low, dangerous. Are you thinking because you have a little shop? Because you make a little money? Do you think you can disrespect me? I'm not disrespecting you. I'm telling the truth. The truth? He laughed dryly. The truth is you're a terrible mother, a terrible wife, and a terrible woman. The silence that fell was deafening. My mother looked at him, her eyes full of tears, her mouth trembling, and then she said, her voice breaking, "Get out of my kitchen. Your kitchen." He laughed again. "This is my house too, Clarice. You don't run anything here." I said, "Get out." They stared at each other. I was holding the can of corn so tightly that my fingers were white. Finally, my father left. He slammed the door hard. My mother stood there, in the middle of the kitchen, surrounded by bags, her face wet with tears. "Mom," my voice was low, shaking. She turned around, saw me there, and collapsed. It literally collapsed. Her legs gave out. She fell to her knees on the floor, sobbing. I ran to her. I hugged. She grabbed me like I was the only real thing in the world. "I can't take it anymore," she cried, her voice muffled into my shoulder. "I can't take it anymore. It's okay, Mom. It's okay." But it wasn't. Nothing was fine. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, replaying the scene in my head. My father had called my mother a terrible mother, bad wife, bad woman, and I had the proof, the photos of him with Jessica, the notes, all. But what could I do? I was just a child. But then I remembered something. I remembered the history teacher, Donna Marta. She always said, "Even little ones can change the world. You just need to have courage." I picked up the cell phone. I looked at the photos, for the notes, and I made a decision. I was going to tell my mother. I was going to show everything, but not now, not when she was so or broken. I would wait for the right moment. I was going to gather more evidence. I was going to prepare, because when I told her, I needed to make sure my mother would believe me, and I would have the strength to fight. The following Monday, something happened that changed everything. I was at school during break time, when the principal called me into her office. "There's someone here to pick you up," she said kindly. I found it strange. My mother never picked her up in the middle of the day. She was always at the bakery. I left the room, and there was my grandmother Helena. "Grandmother," I looked at her, confused. "What happened?" "Nothing, sweetheart. I just came to pick you up. Let's have lunch together." This was strange, very strange. My grandmother never did that. He never looked for me. He never took me to lunch. But I was a child, and children obey adults. I went with her. She took me to a fancy restaurant in the city center. We sat at a table near the window. "You can order whatever you want," she said, smiling. I ordered a burger. She ordered a salad. We ate in silence for a while. Then she said, too casually, "How are you, my love? Is everything okay at home?" "Okay." "Is your mother okay?" "Okay." She took a sip of juice. "You know, I've noticed that she's very tired, very stressed. Is she able to take good care of you?" My stomach tightened. "She does, Grandma." "Yeah? Because your dad told me that sometimes you're home alone, that your mom works late and you eat dinner alone. Is that true?" I knew what was happening. She was fishing, trying to get something out of me that he could use against my mother. "We're never alone," I lied. "My mom is always there." "Always?" she insisted, her tone sharper. "Always." She looked at me for a long moment, then he smiled, but it was a cold smile. "That's good, honey. That's good." We finished lunch. She took me back to school, but before I got out of the car, she grabbed my arm. "Strong. Listen here." Her voice was no longer sweet. It was tough. "If anyone asks, you'll say your mother works too much and doesn't take good care of you. Understand?" My heart raced. "But that's not true." "I didn't ask you if it's true. I told you what you're going to say." "Grandma, I can't." She tightened her grip. "You can, and you will. Because if you don't, I'm going to tell the judge what a lying child you are, and then your mother will lose you anyway." Tears burned in my eyes. "Do you understand me?" I shook my head, scared. She let me go. He smiled again. "Great girl. Now go." I got out of the car shaking, and it was at that moment that I knew they weren't just going to take away the bakery. They were going to try to take me and Bianca away from my mother, and they were going to force me to help. I spent 3 days in silence after my grandmother's threat. 3 days of carrying that weight on my chest, looking at my mother and thinking, "I need to tell you. I need to." But every time I opened my mouth, my grandmother's voice echoed in my head. "You're a lying child. Your mother will lose you anyway." Until Thursday night, I couldn't take it anymore. My mother was in the kitchen, washing the dinner dishes, alone, as always. My father was out again. "Meeting," he said. Bianca was locked in the room. I entered slowly. I stood near the table, my hands sweaty, my heart pounding. "Mother?" She turned around, drying her hands on the cloth, smiled, that tired smile she was wearing more and more. "Hi, my love. Are you okay? I need to tell you something." She turned off the tap. He really looked at me. What it was? I took a deep breath. Tears were already burning in my eyes. Daddy has another one." The silence that fell was deafening. My mother stood there, looking at me as if she didn't understand. He blinked once, twice, 3 times. "What do you mean, daughter? He has another woman. I saw it. I took pictures." My voice came out shaking. "Her name is Jessica, and Grandma knows. Grandma is helping him." My mother leaned on the sink. The color drained from her face. Are you sure?" I picked up the cell phone with shaking hands. I opened the gallery. I showed the photos. My father and Jessica at the cafe, hand in hand, kissing. My mother looked at each photo in silence. Then she passed her hand over her face, took a deep breath, and asked, her voice strangely calm, "Is there more?" "He has." I showed the photos of the divorce documents, the notes I had taken. I told everything I heard, everything I saw, all. When I finished, my mother was sitting in the chair, her head in her hands. I thought she was going to cry. I thought I was going to scream, that it was going to collapse. But she didn't do any of that. She raised her head. He looked at me, and in her eyes, for the first time in months, I saw fire. "Send these photos to my cell phone," she said firmly. "All." One. The next morning, my mother didn't open the bakery. For the first time in years, she didn't wake up at 5 in the morning to make bread. She woke up at 7, took a shower. He dressed in formal clothes, tied up her hair. He put on lipstick. "Where are you going, Mom?" I asked, seeing her pick up her bag. "Settle this." She kissed my forehead. "You go to school. I'll be back soon," and left. I stood there, standing still, watching her walk away with that steady walk that I hadn't seen in so long. My mother had woken up. I found out later what she did that day. She went straight to the city center. He looked for the best law firm he could find. He went in, asked to speak to someone, and sat at the reception to wait. 4 hours later, she left there with a lawyer, Dr. Renata, a woman of about 40, short hair, impeccable suit, sharp eyes. My mother showed her everything, the photos, my father's documents, the notes I had taken. Dr. Renata looked at everything in silence. Then he smiled. "Clarice," she said, "you have a winning case." And that's how the turnaround began. Dr. Renata wasted no time. In 2 days, she had already gathered everything: photos, proof that my father did not contribute financially, witnesses who could confirm that my mother always took care of everything herself. She also discovered something that not even my mother knew. My father had taken money from the joint account, a lot of money, almost 20,000 reais, and transferred to Jessica's account. "This is misappropriation of assets during the marriage," Dr. Renata explained. "He's screwed." My mother, for the first time in months, actually smiled. And the hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks from now. But Dr. Renata said that before that, a conciliation meeting needed to take place. One last attempt to resolve everything without going to court. My father accepted. Of course he accepted. He thought he was still in control. The meeting was scheduled for a Friday afternoon in Dr. Renata's office. I didn't go, but my mother told me everything later. And my father arrived, accompanied by his lawyer, Dr. Fabio, a fat man in an expensive suit and with few friends. And my grandmother, Helena. Yes, my grandmother went. Dr. Renata didn't like it. "You weren't invited." "I'm his mother. I have a right to be here." "Actually, there isn't." Dr. Renata was a surgeon. "But if Clarice allows it," my mother looked at her mother-in-law, that woman who had spent years humiliating her, belittling her, slowly destroying her. "You can stay," my mother said firmly. "I want her to see." They all sat at the table, my father on his lawyer's side, my grandmother next door, my mother alone with Dr. Renata. Dr. Fabio started with the standard speech. "My client wants to end the marriage amicably. He is willing to divide the assets fairly." "Fair?" Dr. Renata interrupted. 50% of a bakery that my client built alone, while her client barely showed up at home. They are married in partial community of property. The law is clear. The law is also clear about adultery and embezzlement. Silence. Dr. Fabio frowned. "What are you talking about, doctor?" Renata opened the folder. He placed the photos on the table, one by one. My father and Jessica at the cafe, hand in hand, kissing. My father turned white. My grandmother swallowed hard. "Furthermore," Dr. Renata continued implacably, "we have proof that Mr. Ricardo embezzled 20,000 reais from the joint account and transferred it to his lover. This constitutes a crime." Dr. Fabio looked at my father. "Did you do this?" My father didn't respond. "Furthermore," Dr. Renata placed more papers on the table. "We have witnesses who confirm that Mrs. Clarice has always been the sole breadwinner of the house, that Mr. Ricardo has not contributed financially for years, and that he tried to manipulate the youngest daughter into testifying against her own mother." My grandmother opened her mouth. "That's a lie. You threatened an 11-year-old child to lie in court." Dr. Renata looked directly at her. "We have recording. I had recorded it. On the day of lunch at the restaurant, I hid my cell phone in my pocket and recorded everything." My grandmother turned pale. "So," Dr. Renata leaned back in her chair, "let's renegotiate. My client will keep 100% of the confectionery, with full custody of her daughters, and Mr. Ricardo will return the 20,000 reais embezzled. In exchange, she will not file criminal charges for misappropriation of assets." Absolute silence. Dr. Fabio looked at my father. My father looked at my grandmother. My grandmother looked at the floor. "What if I don't accept?" my father asked. his voice weak. Then we go to court, and I guarantee that you won't leave there with anything, besides facing criminal charges. My father took a deep breath. I need to think. You have until Monday. Dr. Renata closed the folder. Meeting adjourned. And that weekend, the bomb went off. I don't know how, but the story got out. Someone told. Maybe an office secretary. Maybe someone who saw the photos. The fact is that on Saturday morning, everyone in the neighborhood knew. Ricardo, the son of the hardware store owners, was cheating on his wife, and the wife had proof, and I was going to finish him off. I saw neighbors whispering in the street. I saw people looking at my father's car parked in front of the house, and I saw, for the first time, people supporting my mother. Dona Sonia, the next-door neighbor, rang the doorbell bringing a cake. If you need anything, you can count on me. Aunt Mara, who had been a customer at the bakery for years, called crying. Clarice, I always knew you were a warrior. Don't let him get you down. Even my teacher, Dona Marta, when she found out, took me aside on Monday and said, your mother is a strong woman, and so are you. Don't forget that. People were watching. They were finally seeing who my mother really was. Atin Sadim. On Monday, Dr. Fabio called Dr. Renata. My father accepted everything. I wasn't going to dispute anything. I was going to return the money. I was going to sign the divorce. He was going to give up custody. He only made one request, that Bianca could choose who to stay with. Dr. Renata accepted. And that afternoon, my mother told me everything, sitting in the kitchen, holding a cup of tea with her hands shaking. It's over, she said, her voice breaking. He finished. And then she cried. But this time, it wasn't crying out of pain. It was a cry of relief. But the story was not over. The worst was yet to come. The following Sunday, I had lunch scheduled at my grandparents' house. It was my grandfather Antonio's birthday. A big lunch, with uncles, cousins, everyone. My mother wasn't going. Of course I wouldn't. But my father demanded that Bianca and I go. It's your grandfather's birthday. You guys go. We were. The house was full. Everyone eating, talking, laughing, as if nothing had happened. I stayed quiet in a corner, eating in silence, until my grandmother Helena got up, tapped the glass with the spoon, and asked for attention. I wanted to say something, she said, her voice firm, about everything that's going on. The room fell silent. I know there are people talking out there, spreading lies about Ricardo, about our family. She looked around. But I want you to know the truth. Clarice is a self-interested woman. She always has been. She married my son for money, and now she's trying to take everything from him. My blood boiled. She invented this story of betrayal to play the victim. She even manipulated her own daughter. I couldn't take it. I got up. Two. Everyone looked at me. Stop lying. My voice was loud, shaking. You know it's not true. You know Daddy cheated. You helped him. My grandmother blushed. Sit down and be quiet. I won't stay quiet. Tears were streaming down my face. You threatened me to lie. You tried to destroy my mother. And my mother never did anything wrong. She just worked. She just took care of us. Absolute silence. Then my grandfather Antonio stood up. He looked at his wife. Is it true, Helena? My grandmother didn't respond. I asked, is it true? Antonio, did you threaten my granddaughter? His voice was heavy, dangerous. Silence. And it was at that moment that my father, cowardly as always, attempted the last blow. Dad, he said desperately, you don't understand. Clarice, but my grandfather raised his hand, telling him to shut up. Then he looked at me. Daughter, he said, his voice breaking, pardon me, and left the room. After that lunch, everything changed, fast, as if the truth, once exposed, could no longer be kept. My grandfather Antonio left the room that day and never came back. He took the car and left, leaving my grandmother Helena alone in the middle of his birthday party, surrounded by relatives looking on with contempt and pity. I had never seen my grandmother like this, small, fragile, embarrassed. My father tried to run after his grandfather, but he didn't want to talk. He raised his hand, told him to stay away, and left. Bianca and I stood there, in the middle of that room full of people, feeling the weight of silence, until an aunt, Aunt Vera, my father's sister, got up, came to me and said softly, "You were very brave, girl," and hugged me. Other people started to leave, no goodbyes. Without kissing the birthday girl, they just left, one by one, leaving my grandmother alone with her shame. My father stood there, his shoulders slumped, his face red with anger and humiliation. And Bianca looked at me with hatred, pure hate. "You destroyed the family," she said quietly, just for me to hear. But I didn't respond, because I hadn't destroyed anything. They destroyed it, alone. And that night, when I came home, my mother was in the living room, sitting on the couch, waiting. I told everything, every word, every look, every silence. And when I finished, my mother hugged me tightly, so strong that I could barely breathe. I didn't need to do that," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You're just a kid." But I couldn't let them lie, Mom. I couldn't. She held my face with both hands. He looked into my eyes, and he said, with a firmness I hadn't seen in months, "You saved me." And at that moment, I knew I had done the right thing. 2 weeks later, the divorce was made official. My father signed everything. He returned the 20,000 reais. He gave up the confectionery. He gave up custody. But Bianca chose to stay with him. My mother cried when she found out. He cried a lot, but he respected the choice. "She needs time," Dr. Renata explained. "She grew up believing one version of the story. It will take time for her to understand the truth." My mother nodded, her eyes red. "I'll wait, as long as it takes," and waited. Bianca went to live with my father and Jessica. Yes, he admitted the relationship openly. He rented a small house on the other side of town and took Bianca with him. I visited her sometimes. At first, she barely spoke to me. I kept a frown on my face and responded in monosyllables, as if I were to blame for everything. Until one day, about 3 months later, I got there and found her crying in her room. What it was, I asked, sitting on the bed next to her. She wiped away her tears, irritated. "Nothing. Bibi, tell me." She took a deep breath, and he blurted out, "He doesn't care about me. He only cares about her. Jessica, he forgot my birthday. He forgot, understand? He spent the whole day with her. They went out, went to dinner, and I stayed here, alone." My heart sank. And when I complained, he said I was being dramatic, that I should be grateful to have a place to live. She started crying again, and this time, I embraced it. Mom never forgot anything, right?" she whispered. "Never," I replied. And it was there, in that small, empty room, that Bianca began to understand. Yes, 6 months after the divorce, Bianca returned. He appeared at the door on a Saturday afternoon, with a backpack on his back and his eyes red. My mother was in the kitchen. When he saw Bianca there, standing at the door, he dropped everything and ran. "Mom!" Bianca barely managed to speak. "I'm sorry," and it collapsed. My mother hugged her. He squeezed hard. They cried together. "It's okay," she repeated, kissing Bianca's hair. "It's okay. You're home." And that day, our family began to rebuild. My mother flourished. It's the only word that describes what happened to her after the divorce. She smiled again. He sang again while making cake. There was a sparkle in his eyes again. The confectionery grew. Very. People in the neighborhood, who had seen everything, started to be more supportive. They placed orders. They recommended it to friends. They posted on social media. Within a year, my mother was able to rent a bigger place, hired 2 employees. He placed small tables in front of the store for people to have coffee. Doce Lar became a reference in the city. And my mother became an example. My grandfather Antonio separated from my grandmother Helena. Yes, after 40 years of marriage, he filed for divorce. He told me in person, one afternoon when he showed up at the house to visit. "I spent 40 years turning a blind eye to a lot of things," he said, drinking coffee with my mother. "But when she threatened my granddaughter, when she tried to destroy you, Clarice, I couldn't turn a blind eye any longer." My mother held his hand. "Thanks. I'm the one who apologizes for not doing anything sooner." They talked for hours that day, and since then, my grandfather has become a constant presence in our house. He went to lunch with us every Sunday. I took flowers for my mother. He asked how the bakery was. He played with me and Bianca. He became a real grandfather. At my father disappeared. After Bianca returned, he tried calling her a few times. He tried to convince her to come back, but Bianca didn't want to. "I don't trust him anymore," she told me one night, lying in bed next to me. "He lied. He manipulated. He used us." She paused. "Just like Grandma Helena. My grandmother Helena also disappeared. He moved to another city to live with a sister. It never appeared again, never called, never apologized. And you know what? I didn't miss it. Because family is not who shares a surname. Family is who stays, who cares, who truly loves. Today, I am 22 years old. I'm in college, studying law. Yes, law. Because after everything I saw, I decided I wanted to help women like my mother. Women who work alone, who raise children alone, who are humiliated, diminished, expelled from their own families. I want to be the lawyer my mother needed. Bianca is finishing high school. I have a complicated relationship with the past, but it's better, much better. And my mother? My mother is happy. She has the bakery. There's us. Grandfather Antonio visits every Sunday. She has friends, clients who became friends, a life she built with her own hands. She never married again. I never wanted to. She said she didn't need anyone to be complete, and she's right. And there is a morning that I will never forget. It was about 2 years ago, right after Bianca came back. I woke up early, went down to the kitchen, and found my mother sitting at the table, drinking coffee, looking out the window. The sun was rising. The light hit her face, illuminating her brown eyes, her hair loose on her shoulders. "Good morning, Mom." She turned, smiled. "Good morning, my love." I sat next to her. "It is good too?" Okay. She took a sip of coffee. I was just thinking. Thinking about what? She was silent for a moment. Then he said slowly, that Sunday lunch, when Bianca said that sentence. I knew which phrase. I left quietly that day, she continued, her voice breaking, because I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was being kicked out of my own family, and the loneliness I felt weighed like a stone on my chest. She looked at me. But you saw it. You, at 11 years old, saw it, and you held my hand. Tears ran down my face. I learned that day, she said, that some expulsions hurt more than any closed door, because it's not about leaving. It's about being thrown out, being treated like you don't belong. She held my hand. But I also learned that as long as I have you, I will never be alone. And we cried together, there, in the kitchen, with the sun rising outside. Today, when I look back, I see everything clearly. I see an 11-year-old girl who decided not to remain silent, who decided to fight for her mother, even without knowing how. I see a mother who endured humiliation, betrayal, conspiracy, and still stood up, who didn't give up, who fought. I see a family that was destroyed by greed and lies, but it was rebuilt with love and truth, and I see that justice doesn't always come quickly. But when it comes, it restores. Today, my mother has her bakery. She has her daughters. She has her dignity back. And me, I'm proud of who I am. Proud to have been the daughter who didn't give up on her mother. Because in the end, love wins. Always wins. Final reflection. If you went through something similar, if you saw your mother being humiliated, if you felt that loneliness weighing like a stone, I want you to know, you are not alone. Fight, speak, scream if you have to. Because mothers like mine, and maybe like yours, deserve to be defended. They deserve justice. They deserve love. And you, have you ever seen your mother being treated unfairly? Have you ever had to choose a side? Tell us here in the comments. I read them all. And if this story touched you, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. Because every week I bring real stories of women who fought and won. From mothers who didn't give up. Of daughters who held their hands until the end. See you next time. And remember, you are stronger than you imagine.